She arrived at the gate, her face sunburned and her eyes heavy with exhaustion. Her boots were torn, her hands trembled, and her stomach had been rumbling for over a day. She carried only an old backpack and a sliver of dignity the world seemed determined to strip away. She stopped before the man watching the corral and with a hoarse whisper asked, "Can I work for food?" The rancher, a tall man with broad shoulders and deep-set eyes, was silent for a few seconds. His face was weathered by time, and his posture suggested a man who had learned to live with unhealed losses. Those who knew him said that since his wife's death, he'd shut himself off from the world. But the past always finds a way to knock, and when it did, everyone discovered that work for food could transform into the feast the soul needed most. The feast of finally being welcomed as someone who deserved to stay. Subscribe to the channel for heartwarming stories every day. The ranch woke up the same way every morning, with the rough crowing of roosters, the distant lowing of cattle, and the scent of damp earth rising from the pasture after the pre-dawn mist. Tomas walked among the corrals, mud caked on his boots, his hat pulled low over his forehead, his eyes fixed on the horizon, as if expecting something that would never come. It had been 3 years since Isabel had left. 3 years since the fever had taken the only woman he'd ever loved, leaving the big house empty and his heart buried with her in the small village cemetery. The ranch hands still spoke in hushed tones when they passed him, as if afraid of breaking something already shattered. Routine was all that was left, mending fences, branding calves, checking the well pump, eating alone in the kitchen, where Isabel's chair remained empty, its seat covered by a fine layer of dust he never cleaned. At night, Tomas would sit on the porch and gaze at the stars, smoking in silence, while the cold mountain wind whistled through the planks. He expected nothing more from life. He didn't ask, he didn't pray. He simply existed, enduring his days as if serving a sentence. That morning, however, something changed. She appeared on the dirt road like a phantom, too thin, too dirty, hunched under the weight of a backpack that seemed to hold everything and nothing all at once. Her brown hair was disheveled, her face etched by the relentless sun, her lips cracked. She stopped before the wooden gate as if gathering courage for one more step. Tomas was near the corral when he saw her. He stopped mending a loose board and straightened up, watching her cautiously. Strangers didn't usually show up out here. The ranch was far from town, at the end of a road few dared to travel. She raised her eyes, brown, deep, filled with something he recognized immediately. Contained despair. "Can I work for food?" The voice was hoarse, barely a whisper. Tomas gripped his hammer tighter. He studied her for a long moment. Her hands trembled. Her boots were ripped at the sides. There was a dark stain on the shoulder of her blouse. Perhaps dried blood, perhaps accumulated dirt. He wasn't a man of many words. Never had been. But something about this woman, her upright posture despite her exhaustion, her chin lifted despite her shame, touched an old chord within him. "There's water and a hot plate inside," he said, pointing to the barn next to the main house. "We'll talk after." She blinked, as if disbelieving. She nodded slowly, shifted the backpack on her shoulder, and walked with uncertain steps toward the barn. Tomas watched her go, feeling a strange tightness in his chest, a sensation he hadn't felt in so long he could barely name it: compassion. When she disappeared behind the barn door, Tomas returned to his work, but his hands weren't as steady as before. Inside the barn, Clara sat in a corner on a pile of hay, took the backpack off her shoulders, and hugged her knees. Tears came without warning, hot and silent, soaking the worn denim of her jeans. She didn't want to cry. She couldn't afford to fall apart now, but she hadn't eaten in 2 days. She'd slept outdoors for 3 nights under bridges, on park benches, anywhere no one would chase her away. The world had closed in on her so brutally that for a moment Clara had considered just stopping, lying down by the side of the road and letting it all end. But something Stubborn, small, almost invisible, still pulsed within her. A spark of dignity, a refusal to give up. And now, for the first time in weeks, someone hadn't slammed the door in her face. She wiped her face with the back of her hand and stood up. There was a bucket of clean water and a metal mug hanging on the wall. She drank slowly, letting the cool water slide down her throat, as if it were the most precious thing in the world. A little while later, the barn door opened. An older man with graying hair and a dirty apron entered carrying a tray. He placed it on the floor without ceremony. A plate of rice and beans, pieces of stewed meat, and a thick slice of bread. Beside it, a steaming mug of coffee. "The boss sent it," he said, before leaving without waiting for a reply. Clara looked at the plate as if it were a miracle. She knelt down, picked up the fork with trembling hands, and ate slowly, savoring each bite, feeling her strength return little by little. For the first time in a long time, she felt something akin to hope. Clara woke with a sore body, but a full stomach. Morning light streamed through the cracks in the barn, drawing golden stripes on the packed dirt floor. She sat up slowly, rubbing her eyes, trying to remember where she was. The ranch, the man, the food, all real. She stood up and smoothed her wrinkled clothes. She needed to prove herself useful. She couldn't just stay there, accepting charity without giving anything in return. The word beggar burned like an ember in her mind. She left the barn and stopped before the main house. It was an old structure made of wood with dark shingles, surrounded by a small, neglected garden. The flowers that must have once been tended now grew wild, tangled with weeds. Chickens scratched freely in the yard, and in the distance cattle grazed under a clear sky. Tomas was sitting on the porch, drinking coffee, when he saw her. He raised his eyes, but said nothing. He simply watched as she walked to the steps. "Good morning," Clara said, her voice still hoarse. I can start working now. What do you need?" Tomas took a sip of coffee, thoughtful. "Can you cook?" "Yes, I can clean too. Mend. Sew." "Whatever you need." He nodded slowly, as if weighing the truth behind her words. "The kitchen needs someone. Mrs. Joanna, who used to cook here, went back to her daughters last month. From then on, we muddle through." Clara felt an immense relief flood her chest. "I'll do it. I promise I'll do it well." Tomas stood up, placed his empty mug on the railing, and walked down the steps. He stopped in front of her, studying her with that deep gaze that seemed to see more than it should. "You don't need to promise anything. Just do what you can. And if you need to rest, rest." Clara blinked, surprised. No one had ever given her permission to rest. "Thank you," she murmured. He nodded and headed toward the barn. Clara watched him leave, feeling something strange and warm settle in her chest. Respect, or maybe gratitude. She entered the house through the back door and found the kitchen exactly as she'd expected. Functional, but neglected. Pots piled in the sink, dish towels hanging crooked, the table covered in crumbs. But there were ingredients. Flour, eggs, fresh milk in a clay jug, smoked sausage hanging from the ceiling. Clara tied back her hair, washed her hands, and started to work. 2 hours later, the smell of fresh bread and freshly brewed coffee spread through the house. Clara had cleaned the entire kitchen, swept the floor, organized the cupboards. She prepared a simple stew with potatoes and carrots she found in the cellar, seasoned with rosemary from the garden. When Tomas returned at noon, accompanied by 2 farmhands, old Sebastião and young Lucas, he found the table set. Still warm bread, homemade butter, the steaming stew served in ceramic bowls. The 3 men stopped at the door, surprised. "Sit down, folks," Clara said timidly. "It's ready." Lucas and Sebastião exchanged glances. It had been years since they'd eaten a real meal in this house. They sat down slowly, picked up their cutlery, and began to eat in silence. Tomas was the last to sit. He tasted the stew, chewed slowly, his eyes fixed on the plate. Then he looked at Clara, who was leaning against the doorframe, nervous. "It's good," he said simply. But there was something in his voice, something that wasn't just approval, it was recognition. That night, Clara returned to the barn, but not before Thomas offered her a clean blanket and a feather pillow. She accepted, wrapped in a gratitude that barely fit inside her chest. Lying in the hay, bundled in the blanket that smelled of sunshine and lavender, Clara looked at the wooden ceiling and allowed herself for the first time in months to believe that perhaps, just perhaps, the worst was behind her. The following days took on a new rhythm. Clara would wake before the sun, prepare strong coffee and fresh bread, and when the men returned from working the fields, they'd find the table set and the kitchen organized. Little by little, the house began to regain something that seemed lost: life. But Clara carried the weight of a past that wouldn't leave her in peace. At night, lying in the barn, memories returned like thorns pricking her skin. The cruel voice of Andre, her ex-boss and brother-in-law, echoed in her mind, "You're worthless. No one will believe you." She squeezed her eyes shut, trying to push the memories away. The dark office, the locked door, the humiliation. And then, when she tried to report it, the coldness of her own sister, who chose to believe her husband. "You're always so dramatic, Clara. Always making things up to get attention." She'd been thrown out of the house that very day. No money, no references, no one. She walked the roads for weeks, taking odd jobs where she could, sleeping wherever they'd let her, until exhaustion, hunger, and shame brought her to that gate. Tomas noticed. He wasn't a man of many words, but he had observant eyes. He saw the way Clara flinched when someone got too close, the way she lowered her gaze when she received a compliment, the trembling hands when she picked up something metallic, a fork, a knife, as if expecting to be hurt. One Saturday afternoon, while Clara was watering the garden flowers, Tomas approached with a basket of firewood. "These roses belong to my wife," he said, breaking the silence. Clara looked up, surprised. It was the first time he'd mentioned his wife. She loved taking care of them. She used to say a house without flowers wasn't a home. Clara looked at the red roses beginning to bloom under her care. "She was right," she said softly. Tomas nodded, placing the basket on the ground. "You don't have to tell me anything, but know that here no one will judge you." Clara felt her eyes sting. She turned away quickly, pretending to adjust the hose. "Thank you," she murmured. Tomas remained there for another moment, then headed toward the barn, but his words hung in the air, warm and firm like a promise. That same week, the village started talking. Donna Marta, the owner of the general store, mentioned to her neighbor that Tomas had a strange woman working on the farm. "She just showed up," they say. "Nobody knows where she came from." The gossip spread quickly, and soon Father Antonio, a middle-aged man with a stern gaze, decided to pay a visit. He arrived on a Thursday afternoon, riding a mule, his Bible tucked under his arm. Tomas greeted him on the porch, cordial but cautious. "I've come about the young woman here," the priest said, without preamble. "People are concerned, Tomas. A woman alone, with no known family. You understand the impression that makes." Tomas crossed his arms, his jaw tight. "She works here, cooks, cleans, tends the garden. I don't see a problem with that. And where does she sleep? In the barn, with respect and decency." The priest sighed. "Tomas, you're a good man, but you need to think about your reputation, both yours and hers. If things aren't clear, the community will start to speculate." "Let them speculate." The priest tilted his head, studying Tomas with sharp eyes. "You're protecting this woman. Why?" Tomas hesitated. The image of Isabel flashed in his mind, her gentle smile, her hands calloused from work, the kindness that radiated from her every gesture. "Because someone needs to," he finally replied. The priest was silent for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "May God guide you then. But be careful, Tomas. The world doesn't always understand compassion. After the priest left, Tomas stood on the porch, gazing at the horizon. Inside the kitchen, Clara held her breath, having overheard the conversation. She leaned against the wall, her heart heavy. She didn't want to be a burden. She didn't want to tarnish the reputation of this man who had given her shelter when everyone else had closed their doors. But where could she go if this was the only place she still felt human? The days on the farm took on their own cadence, like the seasons that marked the work in the fields. Clara learned to anticipate the needs of the house before anyone even asked. She knew when Tomas preferred his coffee stronger, when Sebastião needed tea for his cough, when Lucas returned from the pasture ravenous. But it was in the small gestures that true change happened. On a foggy morning, Clara found an injured hen near the coop, its wing twisted, unable to fly. She could have let nature take its course, but something inside her refused. She carefully picked up the animal, took it to the kitchen, and improvised a splint with toothpicks and strips of cloth. Tomas entered and stopped at the door, watching. "It's going to be a lot of work," he said. "I know. It might not be worth it." Clara looked up, holding the hen against her chest. "Everything's worth it when you care." Tomas fell silent, but something shifted in his gaze. He nodded slowly and left, leaving Clara with the hen and a strange feeling that she had said something important. In the following days, the hen, whom Clara named Amelia, began to recover. She fed it softened corn, changed its splint, and spoke softly to the animal as if it could understand. And perhaps it could, because Amelia started following her around the yard, pecking near her while Clara tended the garden. Lucas would laugh every time he saw the scene. "You've become a chicken, Mom, Mrs. Clara." Clara smiled shyly. It was the first time in a long time someone had called her Ma'am, treated her with respect. Sebastião, meanwhile, taught her how to make fresh cheese and smoke sausages. Mrs. Isabel knew how to do this, he'd say, his voice heavy with longing. She said food made with care is food that warms the soul. Clara listened, absorbing every word, every gesture. She learned not just the techniques, but the philosophy behind them. Caring for the land, caring for the animals, caring for each other. One afternoon, Tomas found her sitting under the big cottonwood tree in the middle of the pasture, mending one of his shirts that had snagged on the fence. She sewed with precise movements, the needle gliding through the fabric with ease. "Where did you learn to sew like that?" he asked, sitting beside her in the shade. "From my grandmother before she passed away." Clara pulled the thread, tied a firm knot. She used to say sewing was a way of putting broken things back together. Tomas picked up a stick and drew aimlessly on the ground. Isabel used to say the same thing. Clara looked at him, noticing the vulnerability in his tone. She must have been an incredible woman. She was. Tomas looked up at the horizon where the sun was beginning to set. She taught me that kindness doesn't need a reason. That you don't help someone because you expect something in return. You help because it's the right thing to do. Clara felt a lump in her throat. She lowered her eyes, trying to hide the tears that threatened to fall. I don't know if I deserve all this." Tomas turned to her, his voice firm. "Nobody deserves the bad that the world does, but we choose the good that we do in return." He stood up, adjusted his hat, and walked back toward the house. Clara remained there, holding the mended shirt, feeling something new and a little frightening grow inside her. Trust. That night, for the first time since she had arrived, Clara didn't have nightmares. She slept deeply, lulled by the sound of the wind in the trees and the scent of wet earth drifting through the barn's cracks. And when she woke, she found a new blanket folded at the door, with a note written in a firm, masculine hand. "For the cold nights. Tea." Clara held the note against her chest and finally allowed herself to cry. But this time, they weren't tears of pain. They were tears of hope. The storm arrived without warning, as it often did in the hills. The sky darkened in an instant, and the wind began to howl through the trees, carrying leaves and branches through the air. Clara ran to gather the chickens, calling Amelia's name as the heavy rain began to fall. Tomas and Lucas worked to close the corral and protect the newborn calves. Sebastian was locking the barn door where the feed sacks were stored. Thunder rumbled across the sky, shaking the very ground. "Clara, get inside!" Tomas yelled, his voice almost swallowed by the storm's roar. But Clara stood in front of the chicken coop, looking out at the pasture. One of the mares, pregnant and close to foaling, was restless near the fence, reluctant to go into the stable. "Star!" she shouted. "She's scared!" Tomas turned, saw the mare and cursed under his breath. He ran toward Clara, grabbed her arm. "You're going to get soaked. I'll go get her. I'm going with you." "Clara, I'm going." There was no time to argue. Together, they ran across the drenched pasture, the rain lashing their faces. The mare whinnied nervously, her hooves slipping in the mud. Tomas approached slowly, speaking in a low, firm tone. "Easy, girl. Easy." Clara stood beside him, reaching out to stroke the animal's neck. The mare calmed a little, enough for Tomas to grab a makeshift halter and begin guiding her back to the stable. When they finally got her safely inside, all three were soaked, shivering with cold. Tomas locked the stable door, ran a hand over his wet face, and looked at Clara. "You're crazy," he said, but there was a small smile at the corner of his mouth. Clara smiled back, still breathless. "So are you." That night, the storm showed no mercy. Clara was in the kitchen, making hot tea for everyone, when she heard a low groan coming from the stable. She dropped everything and ran there, finding Tomas kneeling beside Star. "She's in labor," he said, his voice tense. "But something's wrong. The foal isn't coming right." Clara knelt beside him, her heart pounding. "What do we do? I need to help reposition it, but it's going to be difficult." Clara didn't hesitate. She rolled up her sleeves, got warm water in a bucket, and prepared clean cloths. She stood beside Tomas, holding the mare's head, stroking her, whispering words of encouragement as he worked with firm, careful hands. It was a long, agonizing vigil. The mare moaned, sweat and rain mixing in her coat. Clara felt tears stream down her face, but she didn't stop talking, calming, being present. "You're strong, girl. You can do it. Just a little longer." And then, in a moment of pure exhaustion and relief, the foal slid into the world, small, wet, trembling. Tomas quickly cleared its muzzle, and the foal took its first shaky breath. Clara let out a sob of relief, covering her mouth with her hand. Tomas sat on the straw-covered floor, his hands stained with blood and fluids, his face etched with fatigue. "We did it," he said, looking at Clara. She nodded, unable to speak. The mare turned her head and began to lick the foal, and the little animal, still wobbly, tried to stand. Tomas and Clara remained there side by side, watching in silence. The storm still raged outside, but inside the stable there was something sacred, something bigger than the two of them. When they finally returned home, covered in mud and exhausted, Sebastian was waiting for them with blankets and hot coffee. "Are you all right?" the old man asked, worried. "We are," Tomas replied, looking at Clara. And for the first time in a long time, he wasn't just talking about being alive, he was talking about being whole. The week following the colt's birth brought a deceptive calm. Clara continued her chores with renewed dedication, and Tomas, though still reserved, had started conversing more during meals. There was a silent understanding between them, gestures that needed no words, glances that said more than whole sentences. But peace never lasts when the past is lurking. One Tuesday afternoon, the mailman appeared at the gate. It was rare for them to receive mail, so Tomas found it odd when the man handed him a yellowed envelope postmarked from another town. "It's for someone named Clara Maria dos Santos," the mailman said. "They said she's around here." Tomas felt his stomach clench. He took the envelope, thanked him, and waited for the mailman to leave before looking again at the name written in careful script. Clara was in the kitchen when he entered, holding the envelope as if it was something dangerous. "This came for you." Clara turned, saw the envelope, and paled. Her hands began to tremble. She recognized the handwriting immediately. It was from her sister, Eliane. I don't want it," she whispered, stepping back. "You don't have to open it now," Thomas said softly. "But it might be important." Clara looked at the envelope as if it could bite her. Finally, with trembling hands, she took it. She sat on the kitchen chair and, with unsteady fingers, broke the seal. The letter was short, but each word was a blade. "Clara, I found where you are. Andre wants you back. He says you took important company documents. If you don't return them, he'll go to the police. You know no one will believe you. Come back and fix this before it gets worse. Don't make me choose between you and my husband again. Eliane." Clara read the letter once, twice, 3 times. The words danced before her eyes, jumbled by anger, hurt, and renewed betrayal. "He lied," she murmured, her voice shaking. "I didn't take anything. I just ran." Thomas, who had stayed near the door, took a step forward. "Who is Andre?" Clara squeezed her eyes shut, trying to hold back tears. "My ex-boss, my sister's husband. He harassed me for months. One day he locked me in his office and..." Her voice broke. "I managed to escape, but when I told Eliane, she didn't believe me. Said I was making it up, that I wanted to ruin her marriage." Clara's breathing became ragged. "She kicked me out of the house. And now he's saying I stole. He wants to destroy me completely." Thomas felt rage rise like lava. He clenched his fists, his jaw tight. "You're not going back." Clara looked up, startled. "But if he calls the police, let him call. We'll handle it here, together." "You don't understand, Thomas. He has money, influence. I have nothing. No one will believe me." Thomas knelt in front of her, holding Clara's trembling hands between his own. Large, calloused, firm. "I believe you." Clara crumbled. She let the tears fall, let the sobs shake her body, let herself break for the first time in front of someone who didn't judge her. Thomas said nothing more. He just stayed there, holding her hands, offering the only thing he could: presence. When Clara finally calmed down, she wiped her face with the back of her hand and looked at him. "Why are you doing this? Why do you care?" Thomas hesitated. The image of Isabel flashed in his mind, but this time it brought no pain. It brought clarity. "Because I know what it's like to live alone. I know what it's like to carry burdens no one sees. And I know that if Isabel were here, she'd do the same thing." He squeezed Clara's hands tighter. "You're not alone, Clara. Not anymore." That night, as Clara tried to sleep in the barn, the folded letter tucked beneath her pillow, she realized something fundamental. For the first time in her life, someone had chosen to stand by her side. And that changed everything. Andre arrived on a Saturday morning, driving a silver pickup truck that kicked up dust on the dirt road. He stopped in front of the gate, got out of the car with the arrogance of someone used to being obeyed, and looked at the farm as if it was something inferior. He was a tall man, in a well-cut suit and polished shoes, completely out of place in that rural setting. His face was angular, his eyes cold, and a cynical smile played on his lips. Thomas was fixing the fence when he saw the truck. He dropped his hammer and walked toward the gate, his muscles tense. He didn't need to ask who the man was. He knew. "Are you the owner of this place?" Andre asked, without bothering to greet him. "I am." "Then you must know where Clara Maria dos Santos is. She works for you, doesn't she?" Thomas crossed his arms, his voice calm but firm. "And if she does?" Andre took a step forward, his smile widening. "Then you're harboring a thief. She took important documents from my company. I've come to collect what's mine." "She didn't take anything." Andre raised his eyebrows, feigning surprise. "Oh, really? And you know this because she told me, and I believe her." Andre's smile vanished, replaced by an expression of contempt. "You don't know who you're dealing with, old man. This woman is a liar. She made up stories about me, tried to ruin my marriage. And when she couldn't, she ran like a coward." Tomas took a step forward, and despite being older, his presence was intimidating. "Get out of here, now." Andre laughed, but the sound was dry, humorless. "Or what? You'll hit me? You'll go to jail for assault? Great, do it. It'll make my job easier." Before Tomas could reply, Clara appeared on the porch of the house. She had heard the truck, recognized the engine, and now she stood there, pale as a ghost, but standing tall. "Andre," she said, her voice trembling but firm, "go away." Andre turned to her, and the smile returned, cruel, venomous. "Clara, what a surprise. I thought you'd hide until the end of your days." Clara descended the porch steps, walking slowly to the gate. Tomas moved to her side, protective. "I have nothing of yours," Clara said. "You know that." "Oh, but you do. You have the truth, and I can't let you spread lies about me, can I? So here's the deal. You come back with me, sign a document saying it was all a misunderstanding, and we'll forget this whole thing. And if I don't?" Andre tilted his head, as if explaining something obvious to a child. "Then I'll go to the police. I'll say you stole. I'll sue this farmer for complicity. I'll ruin his reputation just like you tried to ruin mine." Clara's legs felt weak, but Tomas placed a firm hand on her back. The touch was warm, solid, real. "You're not going to do any of that," Tomas said, his voice low but dangerous. "Because I'm going into town and telling everyone what you did to her. I'm getting a lawyer. I'm making you answer for this." Andre let out a laugh. "With what proof? Her word against mine. Good luck with that." "Not just her word," a voice said from behind them. They all turned. Father Michael stood there, mounted on his horse, accompanied by Martha from the general store and 3 other townspeople. The priest dismounted and walked to the gate, his eyes fixed on Andre. "I heard your conversation," he said, "and I didn't like what I heard." Martha crossed her arms, her expression severe. "We've known Tomas for years, and if he says this young woman is innocent, we believe him." Andre looked at the small group, his confidence wavering for the first time. "You don't know anything." "We know enough," Father Michael replied. "And if you continue with these threats, I'll make sure the whole town hears about it. We'll see who the community believes." Andre opened his mouth, but no words came out. He looked at Clara, at Tomas, at the priest, and realized he had lost. "This isn't over," he finally said before turning back to his pickup truck. He gunned the engine, kicking up a cloud of dust that took a long time to settle. When silence returned, Clara collapsed into Tomas's arms, trembling. "It's over," he whispered, holding her tight. "It's over." But they both knew this was just the beginning of a bigger fight. In the days following Andre's visit, the ranch was on high alert. Tomas locked the gates at night, and Lucas made extra rounds along the property lines. Clara could barely sleep, always expecting to hear the silver pickup truck's engine returning. But what arrived wasn't Andre. It was the sheriff from the next town over, accompanied by a deputy. They showed up on a Wednesday morning, polite but serious, asking to speak with Clara. Tomas met them on the porch, arms crossed. "She hasn't done anything wrong." "Nobody's saying she did, Mr. Tomas," said the sheriff, a middle-aged man named Miller. "But we received a formal complaint of theft. We need to hear her side of the story." Clara appeared at the door, pale but resolute. "All right, I'll talk." Tomas looked at her, worried, but Clara briefly touched his arm. "I need to do this." They sat at the kitchen table, Clara, Tomas, the sheriff, and the deputy. Martha, who had come to bring cheese to sell, stayed in the living room, in silent solidarity. The sheriff opened a small notebook and looked at Clara. "The complaint states that you took confidential documents from Mr. Andre Castillo's company. Is that true?" "No," Clara said, her voice firm. "I never took anything. I worked there for 2 years as his secretary." When Andre started harassing me, I tried to ignore it, but one day he locked me in his office and tried to force himself on me. I managed to escape and told my sister, his wife. She didn't believe me. The sheriff jotted notes, his face neutral. Do you have any proof of the harassment? Clara lowered her eyes. No, I never thought to keep proof. I just wanted to forget. And the documents? I didn't take anything. He's making this up to hurt me. The deputy exchanged a look with the sheriff. Mr. Tomas, can you confirm how long she's been here? Almost 2 months. She arrived with nothing, asking for work. Since then, she's only been helping out. I've never seen her with any documents. Martha approached the table. Sheriff, I've known Tomas since he was a boy. He wouldn't protect someone dishonest. And this young woman works hard. We see it. Father Michael, who had arrived minutes before, joined the group. I can also testify. I've spoken with her. I believe her word. The sheriff sighed, closing his notebook. Look, without concrete evidence on either side, it's difficult to proceed with anything. I'll file the complaint as pending, but if Mr. Castillo comes up with real evidence, I'll have to reopen it. Clara felt relief flood her chest. Thank you. After the sheriff and deputy left, Tomas sat beside Clara, who was holding a teacup with still trembling hands. We need a plan, he said. He's not going to give up. Martha, who had remained, pulled up a chair. I've already thought about it. If you two get married, he can't take her away from here. She'll have the protection of his name, of the property of the community. Clara's eyes widened. Get married? Tomas remained quiet, his face unreadable. Martha continued pragmatically. It doesn't have to be real, dear, just on paper, to protect you both. Clara looked at Tomas, her heart pounding. He met her gaze, and for a long moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, Tomas spoke, his voice low. If you agree, I'll do it. It's not ideal, but it's a solution. Clara felt a lump form in her throat. You'd do this for me? I would. It wasn't a declaration of love. It wasn't soap opera romance. But it was something deeper, truer. It was a choice. It was commitment. It was standing by someone when the rest of the world turned its back. Clara nodded slowly. Then yes, I accept. Martha clapped her hands, satisfied. Great. I'll talk to the priest. We'll do it soon before that Andre guy invents something else. When they were alone in the kitchen, Tomas looked at Clara. Are you sure? Clara held his hand, rough, calloused, honest. I am. You've given me more than I could ask for. You've given me a home. Now it's my turn to protect it. Tomas squeezed her hand back, and for the first time since Isabel's death, he felt that perhaps life still had something to offer him. It wasn't a replacement. It was a new beginning. The wedding was set for the following Tuesday late afternoon in the small chapel in town. Father Michael agreed to perform the ceremony with one condition, that it be done with respect and sincerity, even if it was, in Martha's words, a marriage of convenience. Clara spent the preceding days in a mix of nervousness and strangeness. This wasn't how she had imagined a wedding. No white dress, no reception, no declared love. But it wasn't a lie either. There was something between her and Tomas. Something that couldn't be put into words, but manifested in gestures. The blanket left at her door, the coffee prepared before dawn, the comfortable silence at the end of the day. On the morning of the wedding, Martha appeared at the ranch carrying a simple, light blue cotton dress. It was my daughter's. It was never worn. I thought it might fit you. Clara took the dress with trembling hands, her eyes welling up. Thank you. Martha smiled, squeezing her shoulder. You deserve this, child. You deserve a new beginning. As Clara got dressed, she glanced at herself in the small, cracked mirror in the barn. The dress fit well, simple but pretty. She pinned up her hair with a borrowed clip and, for the first time in months, allowed herself to see beauty in her own reflection. Tomas was waiting for her on the porch, wearing his best shirt, clean, ironed, smelling of soap and sunshine. When he saw Clara coming down the steps, he froze. For a moment, the image of Isabel flickered in his mind, but it brought no pain. It brought gratitude. "You look beautiful," he said simply. Clara blushed. "Thank you." They headed to town in the wagon, accompanied by Sebastian and Lucas, who insisted on being witnesses. Mrs. Marta was already at the chapel, alongside other townsfolk who had gathered, some out of curiosity, others out of genuine support. But not everyone was happy. Standing by the chapel door, arms crossed and a hard expression on his face, was André. Clara froze when she saw him. Tomas immediately stepped in front of her, protective. "What are you doing here?" André smiled, but it was a bitter smile. "Came to see the show. Shotgun wedding, huh? How convenient." Father Antonio emerged from the chapel, his face stern. "Mr. Castillo, if you've come to cause trouble, I suggest you leave. I'm just observing. It's a public ceremony, isn't it? I have a right to be here." Clara felt fear rise in her throat, but Tomas took her hand firmly. "Let's go in," he said softly. "Don't let him ruin this." Inside the chapel, the late afternoon light streamed through the simple windows, illuminating the worn wooden pews and the crucifix on the wall. The priest positioned himself before the makeshift altar, and Tomas and Clara faced each other. André entered and sat in the last pew, his eyes fixed on them like a predator watching its prey. The priest began the ceremony with a firm voice. "We are gathered here today to unite Tomas Ferreira da Silva and Clara Maria dos Santos in matrimony. May this be a bond of protection, respect, and renewal." He looked at Tomas. "Do you, Tomas, take Clara as your wife, to care for her through good times and bad, in sickness and in health?" Tomas looked into Clara's eyes. There was fear there, but also trust, and he realized he wasn't just doing this to protect her anymore. He was doing it because he wanted to. "I do." The priest turned to Clara. "Do you, Clara, take Tomas as your husband, to honor him through good times and bad, in sickness and in health?" Clara swallowed. She looked at Tomas, at the man who had given her shelter when she had nothing, who had believed in her when no one else did. And she realized this was no longer just about convenience. It was a true choice. "I do." The priest smiled discreetly. "Then, before God and this community, I now pronounce you husband and wife." Tomas hesitated, but Clara took a small step forward and shyly touched his face. He tilted his head and kissed her, a simple, brief kiss, but charged with meaning. The chapel erupted in applause. Mrs. Marta was openly weeping. Lucas whistled. Sebastian grinned ear to ear. But when Clara looked toward the back of the chapel, André was no longer there. As they exited the church, they found the silver pickup truck parked in the town square. André was leaning against it, smoking a cigarette. When he saw the couple, he flicked the butt onto the ground and stomped on it with force. "Congratulations," he said, his voice icy. "But this changes nothing. You'll still pay, Clara, one way or another." Tomas took a step forward, but Clara held his arm. "Let him go," she whispered. "He has no power here anymore." André got into the pickup and drove off, kicking up dust. And as Clara and Tomas headed back to the farm, side by side in the wagon, under a sky painted orange and pink, something shifted between them. They were no longer two strangers bound by circumstance. They were companions, partners, allies, and maybe, in time, something more. 2 weeks after the wedding, life on the farm settled into a new rhythm. Clara no longer slept in the barn. Tomas had insisted she stay in the house, in the guest room that had previously served as storage. He helped her clean out the space, bringing in a new mattress, clean curtains, and even a few flowers from the garden. "It's not fancy, but it's yours," he said, standing in the doorway. Clara looked around, her eyes shining. "It's perfect." Meals became moments of genuine sharing. Sebastian and Lucas ate with them almost every night, and the kitchen was filled with laughter, stories, and the smell of fresh baked bread. Amelia, The hen Clara had rescued pecked freely around the yard and had become something of a mascot. The colt born during the storm grew strong and healthy, and Clara spent hours watching it gallop across the pasture beside its mother. There was something healing in it, seeing life flourish, seeing care bear fruit. But the peace was still fragile. One Saturday afternoon, as Clara and Tomas were mending the fence of the north pasture, an unfamiliar car appeared on the road. Clara's heart leaped, but it wasn't the silver pickup. It was a grey sedan, driven by a woman. The car stopped at the gate. The woman got out, hesitantly, and Clara froze. It was Elian. Her sister was thinner, her hair pulled back in a tight bun, her eyes red, as if she had been crying a lot. She stood on the other side of the gate, too afraid to come in. "Clara," she said, her voice trembling, I need to talk to you." Clara dropped the hammer, her body tense. Tomas stood beside her, protective, but Clara briefly touched his arm. "It's okay. I'll go." She walked to the gate, maintaining a safe distance. Elian looked at her and tears began to fall. "I'm so sorry," Elian said, her voice breaking. I should have believed you." Clara crossed her arms, trying to contain her emotions. "Why now? Why are you here?" Elian wiped her face with the back of her hand. "Because I found out you were right. Andre, he did the same thing to another employee. She reported him, and when I confronted him, he confessed. Everything, including what he did to you." Clara felt the ground sway beneath her feet. "And you believed her, but not me." Elian sobbed. I know there's no excuse. I chose to believe him because it was easier, because I was afraid to admit I married a monster. But I was wrong, Clara. So wrong." Clara stood in silence, her chest tight. Part of her wanted to scream, to unleash all the accumulated pain and anger. But another part, the part that had been healed by care, by patience, by kindness, knew that anger wouldn't set her free. "What do you want from me, Elian?" Elian took a deep breath. "I want you to know he won't be bothering you anymore. I gave him an ultimatum. Either he gives it all up, or I'll sue him for assault and harassment. He chose to give it up. You're free, Clara." Clara felt her legs weaken. Tomas appeared beside her, discreetly steadying her by the waist. "And what about you?" Clara asked, her voice quiet. "Are you staying with him?" Elian shook her head. "No, I've filed for divorce. I'm starting over, alone." There was a long silence. Then Elian extended her hand hesitantly. "I don't expect you to forgive me now, maybe never, but I needed you to know that I'm sorry and that you deserve to be happy." Clara looked at the outstretched hand. Part of her still ached, still bled. But she thought of Tomas, of Sebastian, of Lucas, of Mrs. Marta, of Father Antonio. She thought of Amelia, the colt, the roses that had bloomed again. She thought of how care could heal even the deepest wounds. She took Elian's hand, briefly, but enough. "Thank you for coming. It wasn't complete forgiveness, but it was a start." Elian nodded, turned back to the car and drove away. Clara stood there watching the sedan disappear down the road, feeling something heavy lift from her chest. Tomas touched her shoulder, gently. "Are you okay?" Clara turned to him, her eyes full of tears, but for the first time, they were tears of relief. "I am. Finally." That night, everyone gathered on the porch of the house. Sebastian was playing an old accordion, and Lucas was singing off-key, while Mrs. Marta laughed. Clara had prepared a hearty dinner: roast chicken, potatoes, garden salad, fresh bread. When everyone was seated at the table, Tomas raised his glass of water. A toast to new beginnings, to second chances, to finding family where we least expect it. Everyone raised their glasses, and Clara felt her heart overflow. After dinner, when the others had left, Clara and Tomas sat on the porch watching the stars. The cool night air carried the scent of damp earth and flowers. "Thank you," Clara said softly, for everything. Tomas looked at her, and there was something new in his gaze, something that went beyond compassion, beyond duty. "You don't have to thank me. You gave me something I thought I'd lost forever." "What?" "Hope." Clara smiled, her eyes welling up. Tomas reached out his hand, and she took it, firm, warm, true. "This is home," he said. "Our home." Clara nodded, leaning her head on his shoulder. "Yes, it's home now." And under the starry sky, surrounded by the peaceful silence of the countryside, two wounded hearts had finally found the place where they could rest, where they could heal, where they could begin again. If this story touched you, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications to receive new stories every day. What would you do in their place? Comment and share with someone special.